Hello, everyone. How's it going? Great. Now we're already getting new wacky weird commands in chat from our chat today. Man, some weird conversations, but it's all in fun. It's all having fun, so that's all that matters. Welcome to another Serious Talk Saturday here at MindMineTV on twitch.tv/MindMineTV, or if you're listening to us, of course, on Podbean or iTunes or any other podcast aggregator. Thank you so much for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it. We'd love to have you here. Come on in. Please take your shoes off, put your jackets anywhere, and sit back and relax. Join in on some of the conversation, or just, hang tight and enjoy what other people bring about to the conversation.
And what conversations we have. Definitely check out some of our past episodes, whether you are listening to us on an aggregator. Feel free to head on over to Podbean and check us out there, or you can check us out on YouTube and actually see us if you wish to. And of course, if you do want to see us live, as Evin mentioned, we are here on Twitch.
That's right. Every Saturday at 1 p.m. PDT, we are here on Twitch. Every Monday, we post up past episodes on YouTube for you all to enjoy in case you miss our Saturday live streams. And of course, also, in the beginning of the week, we have our podcast going out to you all as well. Feel free to subscribe or follow on whatever platform that you're on. That way you'll be the first to be notified as soon as another episode comes out. And of course, we always love to get feedback from you all. So feel free to review, star the heck out of this podcast, whatever you feel is best. Leave your commentary, or feel free to contact us on the Twitters or on the Instagrams, which is at MindMineTV. And that way you can let us know what kind of topics you want to hear. Is there a topic that you heard that you want us to elaborate more on? Is there, some kind of additional spin to it that you feel should be spoken about? Is there another topic we haven't spoken about, but you would love to hear us chat on and on about it? We would love to do that. So please feel free to contact us. Otherwise, you can check us out at MindMinePod.com, and you can go through our contact page there. Let us know what's going on, share some love, and let's connect and let's see what other awesome conversations we can create here on our Serious Talk Saturdays. Also, thank you so much for those of you joining and chatting away already. RX Mongo, Crazy Doc 08, Denise Grease, and many more. Thank you very much for being here today. We greatly appreciate you, and we're excited to talk about today's topic. We're always excited about every single Saturday because we love talking about these topics. We love, again, opening up pathways of conversation. Not saying 100% all the time, this is, this way or this is that way. It's not 100% black or white. There's a lot of gray areas. There's a lot of areas where it's like you just got to give it time, and we've got to see where this goes. But it's important to talk about these topics now, though. And really get a sense of what's happening around us. So we try to be here for you to get that conversation started. And there's going to be times where we, agree to disagree. But that's fine, because the important thing, too, is that level of communication. Being able to hear the other side of things and just go, oh, okay, I never thought about it that way. I still don't agree. I still think you're wrong, or whatever. But at least be able to hear that other side out. And that's what we try to do as well. So again, if we can't agree on everything, it's about agreeing to disagree, but at least being able to hear people out. That's one of the biggest things that one can do.
And we have some really fun topics for you today. Things that I knew nothing about until I delved a little bit into them. So I'm excited to share that with you. We're going to be talking about the lithium war. What?
Yes, there's a lithium war going on
right now. We're going to also talk about antibiotic resistance, which is a thing that is happening all around us, and dolphin attacks. And no, we're not talking about real dolphins on that either.
Oh, I was getting ready to punch a dolphin.
Oh, what? Dolphins are so nice.
If they're attacking, I don't care. It's going down. a jab to the snout. It's happening.
Aren't dolphins really? They're more like humans than not, right?
In terms of they're very, very
personality
intelligent
and everything.
Yeah, they're very intelligent, very calm, but they will protect. They will bash into something that they feel is an enemy in a way, or someone that's kind of threatening. Yes, exactly right.
Okay.
But we're not talking about those.
We're not talking about them.
We're talking about technology here. So
right.
We're going to dive more
That's
into
right.
that as well.
So first up, a new lithium war is about to begin. So
now, is this going to be a film that's going to be done by Michael Bay, Lithium Wars? Just explosions and shit everywhere. It's going to be amazing.
Yes.
Okay, see, there we go.
It's
Article
in the
done.
works. It's already a trilogy.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Go for it. Go for it.
So historically, of course, many wars have been fought over the possession or the control of vital resources, right? Like water, arable land, gold, silver, diamonds, copper, petroleum, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, just like in the past, the conflict over resources remains a significant feature of our world security right now, right? And right now, there's a modern, quote, gold rush, if you will, because around the world, the most sought-after mineral isn't actually a precious metal, and it's not oil, and it's not gas. It's lithium.
There be lithium up in them hills there.
And if you are watching us on Twitch or on YouTube, you can clearly see the image of what lithium looks like when it is mined.
It just looks like massive lines of cocaine.
They call it the white petroleum. Exactly.
It's very weird. It's like a Scarface movie, or like a scene from Scarface. It's just very strange.
Yeah, or it's like a lot of salt that people just put in some piles, basically. And it's the lightest and least alkali metal. Lithium, and it actually enjoys widespread commercial use in, of course, grease, dryers, air conditioners, medicines, and most of all, battery and renewable energy sectors.
So wait, you said that grease has lithium in it.
That's right.
So Denise, can you verify, with your name being Denise the Grease in chat, are you full of lithium? 1 for yes, 2 for no. 3 for you're not sure, but you're getting tested. Let's figure this out.
Oh my. So of course, for the last 5 years and more, probably, the commodities world has been focused on the epic showdown between shale drillers for the oil market share, right? But we think that it's going to be the war over this white petroleum, or coke, apparently, as we like to call it. Will dominate.
That's a whole other trade.
It's another war that's going on right now. It's going to be this war. It's going to be a war over this lithium that's going to dominate the next decade. Lithium prices have actually risen stupendously in the last 3 years. It went from $6,500 per ton to more than $20,000 per ton. And that price, that's $6,500, that was in 2015, so that was only 3 years ago. So it more than doubled in the past 3 years. And the biggest reason for the surge is, of course, this immense demand for lithium-ion batteries. They're needed to power items like electric vehicles, wind turbines, and your cell phone, which you may or may not be watching us on right now and or listening to us.
What you think about it, too, all the electronics that have like these lithium-ion AA batteries or AAA batteries, too. Like, we have them in so many things, even just toys for kids.
Oh, yes.
It goes from small to very large items that can impact a whole economy. Lithium is involved in some form or fashion.
Right. And the traditional production of lithium and lithium-ion batteries is, of course, concentrated in only a few key areas. So South America has actually lithium mines. And China, which produces most of the world's lithium batteries, and who need, they need a pretty good steady supply for their battery factories. They actually have a good corner on the lithium market right now because they own major shares in many of the South American lithium mines, which again is where the bulk of the world's lithium is currently being produced. But there have been protectionist policies by the U.S. And there's aggressive expansion into European lithium production that may actually cut out the Chinese, they may cut them out of this global battery market, if you will. In early April, the US government actually slapped a big tariff on imported Chinese lithium batteries, which was part of a tariff on Chinese goods worth $50 billion already.
A lot.
So what does this mean? This means that lithium miners are going to see a bigger market for their products. And we're probably going to see a surge of investment into North American mining because there's actually lithium mines in Canada. Yes, in Canada. And there's a booming demand for lithium, of course. Cell phones aren't going anywhere. Electrical vehicles hopefully aren't going anywhere. And wind turbines are hopefully not going anywhere.
Well, there's a huge investment going into green technology right now. So we are already seeing an increase in support for wind turbines as well as electric vehicles. And most people are saying that the bulk of vehicles by 2030 will be electric vehicles actually over gasoline powered or gas powered vehicles.
Indeed. Right. So with this, the demand for lithium is just, it's going to just keep increasing, right? And so they can actually turn, sort of junior miners, some of these new lithium mining companies, into major players virtually overnight. Also, Europe, of course, is looking into lithium mining in Germany and in the Czech Republic. So this global war that everyone's sort of talking about at this point is between China and the rest of the world.
Pretty much how it usually has been working out, though, thus far when it comes to anything concerning the economy. It's like China versus the world. Who will win? Sunday, Sunday, Sunday at the Chinaplex. Come on down.
At the Chinaplex, which will be surrounded by all this lithium, as you can see. It'll just be salt flats everywhere. Lithium flats everywhere. I think, wasn't that was it in Star Wars? Right? Where was Anakin racing? I feel like it was like... Oh, maybe I'm thinking of World of Warcraft. Wow. There was like flats that you could race on. All right, somebody in chat, back me up. This is a real thing. I'm not making it up.
Something in popular culture. They had flats where they raced.
Yes, exactly.
Whether it be WoW for a video game, World of Warcraft, or it be Star Wars. I don't think it was Tatooine, but I mean that was the place where he was. But anyway,
I think I might be thinking of World of Warcraft. But yes, we digress. So this is very interesting, right? Because it's this demand for, so not only the new energy sources that require lithium, let's say, to be powered and all that good stuff, but also our insane demand for gadgetry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I believe I might say even laptops have potentially lithium batteries or cameras or something like that. So there's like a huge demand that is man-made, as it were.
Oh yeah, well, lithium is supposed to be what helps. I mean, it basically the process when you have a lithium battery, it's supposed to last longer than your average battery. Mm-hmm. There's supposed to be more power coming from it, and it's supposed to supposedly last longer. At least that's what's marketed as. So of course, yeah, you're gonna have companies trying to figure out how to put lithium in everything. Basically, anything that can create power and if it makes it so that way it can last longer, they're going to utilize it in some form or fashion. And it doesn't surprise me that, again, you're seeing big players like the US, like Canada, like China and many other countries trying to jump in on this. Actually, I was kind of happy to see that there is a mining company in Chile right now trying to also mine out lithium, because I'm like, well, you should be able to mine your own resources in your own country. I kept reading on, and it was just like, oh yeah, this company from China, this company from the US, this company from over here, they're in Australia, they're in South America, they're in Canada, and I'm like, but they're none of them are from that area. So it's actually kind of nice in that respect to see, oh look, they're mining in their own country. That's great. That's what they should be doing. It's their resources.
Well, it's like all those countries where diamonds come from, right?
Oh yeah, well, like South Africa. I mean, that's been a notorious situation where you had everyone coming and trying to get diamonds. The Dutch basically really controlled the major areas of that, and now have control over most of those mines there, even now today. They have most of the control over the diamond trade there in Africa, especially South Africa. It's just crazy. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, because this is kind of like that situation again. Everyone's fighting for the same areas, the same supplies. So, instead of diamonds now, it's lithium. Instead of gold, it's lithium. So, people aren't blowing up, sides of mountains in California for gold anymore, but they definitely are drilling and digging as far as they can to get as much lithium as they can.
So this will definitely be interesting in the future if, let's say, they decide to turn this into a full-scale war, into a quote-unquote real war, and it's not just, countries imposing tariffs on one another, but they start to, bring in the guns.
Oh yeah, well, if you start fighting for resources, you go, no, that land we've claimed now, and you have that country going, no, none of you can claim this land because this is our land. We're just letting you here so you can get some of the resources. You're paying us. You've signed all the agreements. We've gone through this process already. It could. There is a potential because there is enough money in this. Again, money is what really helps produce a war. It's never usually a conflict in religion or philosophy, even though it has been in the past before, now in today's standards where everything is about money and production and the economy and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, sure, back then it was about philosophy and power in a way and how much land can we take. But now it's becoming all about money. So again, if you get in the way of us getting the money that we feel we can make from this, it could lead to war. And it has before in the past. It has in the past for oil and things along that line, especially in the Middle East. That's why we've had so many wars. It wasn't all just about terrorism. It was also about oil reserves and the areas where we can get the most resources. That's why in many areas we still have soldiers in those areas. Even though there's technically no war going on, the dictatorships that were there have fallen. From what they tell us, some of the terroristic factions have broken apart now, and yet we're still there. Again, it's all about resources, it's all about making money. The government runs itself a lot like a business, and in many ways is a business. Actually, the U.S. government is the largest business in the U.S. legally.
I thought it was the church.
No. That's like second or third, though. Well, no, they're just below tobacco and alcohol, I guess, now. I mean, other industries have started to rise. But, so we could very well see, some friction there, and all of a sudden there could be a war. I mean, again, not saying there will be, but it's things like this that get people, get governments, get leaders a little power hungry, and they say, well, we want more, and friction can happen.
And Denise DeGrease has a great question. What happens when it runs out? Mm-hmm. So, the current global reserve of lithium is a little hard to determine, but people do estimate that it's somewhere between, and this is fairly big range as far as I'm concerned, somewhere between 18 to 40 million tons. So they're saying, even if everyone were to go, let's say with electric cars right now, which, for example, there's around 63 kilograms of lithium in a Tesla Model S battery pack. So even if everyone were to go, electric cars, let's say all the way, and everyone was using 63 kilograms of lithium, it would take years and years and years and years to run out of lithium. So much like I think some of the other resources in the world, like food, right, and arable land, there's enough to go around.
To a point.
It's just a matter of distribution. Where are those resources being distributed? Who is distributing them, and at what cost?
Well, and of course, too, what we're going to end up seeing is, eventually they're going to thin out the herd. The supply is going to thin out. And everyone's trying to think about, well, how can we best use this lithium instead of trying to figure out, well, how best can we elongate the usage of said lithium? Because everyone's like, well, in my lifetime, whatever, it should be fine. But no one's ever thinking about, well, how do we make this resource last? Everyone's just trying to right now do a mad dash to dig it all up to make the most money possible. And they want to dig it up sooner than everyone else can. So that's a little bit scary. Now, originally, too, from what I remember hearing, was that lithium from what I understand, was a very small supply because they only knew about certain pockets of it in the world. And so there was already a concern about, will lithium fade away because we'll use it the last resources? Well, luckily they found a ton now in Canada, Australia, and especially in South America. And so, everyone's trying to jump on this as best as possible. But yeah, eventually you're going to see a thinning out. So, that is a serious issue because, again, we're going to end up relying too much on one resource. And we're going to end up kicking ourselves going, well, damn, we should have done something sooner. I mean, we're kind of doing that with fossil fuels right now, where, again, resources are actually getting low. They've been low for quite some time, or lower. And if we keep going, not only will it impact the Earth negatively from climate change, but also is going to impact us because we won't have any fossil fuels left. So we have no choice but to try to shift over now at this point, where it's almost too late. To then try to go over to electric vehicles, for example, and alternative forms of energy. So what's going to happen once we get this lithium craze started and truly sparked, and then it's all gone? So, I mean, it's great from an economic point of view, from a business point of view, jump on it when something's hot, right? But at the same time, again, we're talking about conflicts that'll end up happening, potentially even, wars in a way, high tariffs, and a lot of, even just in a business standpoint and in a political standpoint, a lot of kind of pokes and jabs at each other through things like tariffs and what have you, to try to deter the kind of, competition. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 5 to 10 years. Again, lithium ion batteries are great, for what they do, especially if they can help with wind turbines and electric vehicles. We absolutely need that energy source stat, and we need to start producing these stat. But
and one of the reasons why they're used for so many devices nowadays is because lithium batteries actually have a high energy density. What that means is that for any given battery weight, lithium batteries actually deliver more energy than batteries based on other metals. So they can, kind of hold more energy in a smaller space. That's why they're so, of course, great for cell phones and other tiny gadgetry.
As things get smaller and smaller, the need for lithium also increases.
Exactly. But other fun facts about lithium is actually some interesting things. Lithium is actually believed to be one of the only 3 elements produced in significant quantities by the Big Bang. So the other 2 being hydrogen and helium. They say that synthesis of these 3 elements took place within the first 3 minutes of the universe's existence. That's intense. So lithium is like from the source, y'all, Also, lithium carbonate, or more precisely, the lithium ions in lithium carbonate are actually used to inhibit the manic phase of bipolar disorder. So not only are they being used to power our gadgetry, but they're actually lithium, is also helpful in helping with some mental health conditions. So that's intense.
Yeah, bipolar disorder is one of them.
Right. Now, obviously, lithium itself is corrosive, right? It causes skin burns, but it's got a lot of good uses. And another good question in chat: how do you dispose of lithium batteries? You should actually take it at a battery recycling drop-off location. It shouldn't be placed in the trash if you're able to do that. There's actually many stores that offer free recycling of rechargeable batteries, such as like Best Buy or something like that. They have like little bins you can just walk in, drop it in right there. They do say that, if there is no outlet available in your area, it is safe to dispose of these batteries in your regular trash. But if you do have a recycling center or a place you can drop that off, that would probably be your best bet.
You know what's interesting? Actually, you mentioned about cell phones, and so does Crazy Doc as well in chat. And it's interesting because I've been seeing more and more of these cell phone recycling automated, what do you want to call them? Like almost like vending machines that are in malls. I've been seeing them spring up quite a bit, both on the East Coast and the West Coast. And basically you drop off your phone there and you tell the computer what kind of phone it is and all the information and stuff, and you put it in there, and it'll give you money for it. And I always thought, oh, maybe they're just like refurbishing the phones, which they might be. And they might be refurbishing the phones. They might be, then selling it somewhere else on another website or whatever. But I'm curious on how much of those are actually them, for instance, taking the lithium-ion batteries and doing something with those as well. Because that's interesting, because most of the time, too, you don't want to reuse the same battery in a cell phone, because over time it does get weaker and it doesn't hold a charge as well, whether they're lithium or not. And so, and considering the fact that our cell phones have such heavy usage as is, it really does a lot of wear and tear on our batteries. And I'm curious, though, on how do they handle that? And what is the true reason? Is it the refurbishing, or is it something to do with the lithium-ion battery? I'm not really sure, but it's interesting, though.
Yeah, and I wonder if, I would have a question of, can you reuse the lithium that's in that battery,
Oh, yeah, or does it, like, somehow reuse it all up or something like that?
Right, like a paper towel, right? Like, you make it all wet, and then you wring it out, and eventually all the water will evaporate, and you could reuse it. Not as great as before, but you could.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good question. Yeah, what those places actually do with them. I know when a long time ago, when I used to work for a phone company, we had to ship out phones and batteries separately. And even now, right, like if you order, let's say a laptop or a phone online, when it arrives, it does arrive with the battery separate from the actual encasing, right? Mm-hmm. So that's really interesting too, because I'm imagining there's a lot of different, whether it's temperature has to be a certain way, or that it doesn't get punctured or something like that, where as they mentioned, that lithium is corrosive when it's when it comes in contact with moisture. So it's probably safe to assume that they separate the batteries from the laptops and the cell phones, because if it gets a little too hot or there's like moisture that gets into it, it could actually damage the components of whatever it's being shipped with.
Which could also be one of the reasons why, like, for instance, if you were to purchase a phone, let's say from T-Mobile or Sprint or what have you, which they're going to be one company soon anyway, from their buyout or merger or whatever they want to call it.
They're merging.
But let's say you bought a phone from them, then you want to trade it back in. A lot of times they hit you with water damage. They say, oh, well, this has been damaged by water. And you go, but it works fine. Why wouldn't you take it back? I'm wondering how much of that is also a concern of the impact on the batteries because of the lithium ion in those batteries in the cell phone. Because they don't want a phone to then like blow up or something, or something happen where it gets corrosive and it leaks out and damages the phone itself, and now they just paid you for a phone, sold it to someone else, and then something happens.
And to kind of go off of that too, how they always say that if you buy, let's say, a camera or a phone, and you have to replace the battery, they always say, oh, well, just make sure you buy from the manufacturer, because then you guaranteed a good thing. And sometimes third-party batteries are better, and sometimes they're not. I wonder how much of that has to do either with the lithium concentration that they put in the battery, mm-hmm. and how much they actually use. Sort of like if you go to a restaurant, you order a meal, but they give you a huge plate and tiny portion on the food. I just wonder now that I'm thinking about lithium as, a resource, of course, that is very costly. Third-party manufacturers may potentially skirt the requirements for, okay, this battery is not probably going to last that long. It'll have the same shape and it'll work with your components, but maybe there's just not that much lithium in it to have that kind of a charge. Or conversely, they put more and it's a better battery. It lasts longer. Mm-hmm. That's fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Again, it has so much impact, and it's so easy just to think of like, oh, lithium-ion batteries. It's just like a fancy, cool name. But really what they're highlighting is the resource they've put into that battery. And, you see like how much impact a resource can truly have. I mean, we already take air for granted and water, but those are two major resources as well, that without them we would not survive. Without lithium, we wouldn't be able to progress as far as we have in technology, as well as many other resources, gold, copper, everything that we've done in the past that we've dug out of the ground has had some major impact. So it's so easy to kind of overlook that and not think much about it. And by the way, welcome Bread TV to chat. Thanks for joining us today. And Smitty4888, thank you so much for joining the conversation today. Appreciate you. Hopefully you're enjoying your Saturday. Yeah, Mongo just looked at my phone battery. Lithium ion confirmed.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, I was gonna say, if it's a small battery, I feel like they're all lithium now. And it's again fascinating to really think about it as a resource. I mean, there's a lot of like movies and shows and that I watch and books that I read on the sort of post-apocalyptic thing that could happen to us. And I always imagine like all we really need to do is just turn off the electricity. And of course, also now because of batteries, get rid of lithium production. So it's a two-step fold there for that.
And Smitty says actually that they're used for airsoft guns as well. And he said that he saw someone's battery set his air gun. The battery basically set the gun itself on fire, and that stuff can be very volatile. So you have to be very careful with them. And I remember hearing stories too about kids who would like throw batteries on the ground just to see what they would do. And people are like, no, you don't want to do that, because again, if you break it open, you're going to get that acid from the battery or the lithium ion material potentially on you, and it can burn you. And there were cases where that did happen. Someone actually broke open a battery and they got some of it on their skin, and it's corrosive. So they got burns from doing that. It just basically ate away at their skin.
I find it fascinating too, although we do live in an age where people eat Tide Pods. But I find it fascinating that, here you have a battery which powers a device, right? So clearly there's like energy there, right? And you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to throw it, see what happens. Like, what are you thinking? Like, what are you thinking? Or let me
Nothing,
crack it
evidently.
open. But I guess that might just be evolution, in progress.
It's Darwin's theory being tested out. That's all. They're scientists, all right? Leave them be. Let them eat their Tide Pods and throw their batteries and see what happens. Again, it's all about evolution. And actually, as we talk about evolution, of course, going on to our next topic, we're talking about the evolution of bacteria.
Yes, and antibiotics. So antibiotics are medicines that are used to either prevent or treat bacterial infections. And since the 1940s, these drugs have greatly reduced illness and death from infectious diseases, so they're pretty great. But resistances can occur when bacteria actually changes in response to the use of these medicines. And of course, antibiotic resistance leads to higher medical costs, like prolonged hospital stays, and they increase mortality. And currently, antibiotic resistance is actually rising to dangerously high levels in the world. Without urgent action, we're kind of heading for a post-antibiotic era, in which really common infections and minor injuries can once again kill us. Mm-hmm. Which is a little frightening to think about. So a growing list of infections are actually becoming harder and sometimes impossible to treat, like pneumonia, tuberculosis, blood poisoning, gonorrhea, and foodborne diseases. And also organ transplantations and chemotherapy and surgeries like cesarean sections they can become more dangerous without effective antibiotics, because they can't prevent or treat any infections that may arise. Now, antibiotic resistance can actually be accelerated by both the misuse and the overuse of antibiotics, as well as, of course, poor infection prevention and control. So more specifically, this misuse and overuse of antibiotics includes overprescribing antibiotics, patients not taking their antibiotics as prescribed, unnecessary antibiotics used in agriculture, And of course, the poor infection control in hospitals and clinics, poor hygiene and sanitation practices, and slow laboratory tests. So while there are some new antibiotics in development, none of them are actually expected to be effective against the most dangerous forms of antibiotic resistance sectors.
Now, this makes sense too, because we as human beings can build up a resistance, right, to different infections and what have you. And a lot of that, though, has to do with the good bacteria that we have in us and on us that helps fight against a lot of these infections. And so they evolve to help protect us. So it's not surprising that not only does the good bacteria evolve in a way, but also what would be considered the bad bacteria, you know, the shit that kills us, and how that can get stronger as well. Because we've been seeing it when it comes to how it impacts us and our survivability for a very long time. So it's no big surprise, or shouldn't really be to us, that also what would be considered, again, the negative or bad bacteria also evolves and gets stronger too.
Yeah, I remember the first time I found out that there's little organisms living inside of us, and I got so spooked. Like, what? There's little things inside of me? And they're like, yeah, you know, there's some that are in your, you know, intestines and stomach, and they help you break down foods and everything like that. And I just lost my mind. And I was like, you guys, I'm on candid camera right now. This textbook is a lie. What are you telling me? There's little organisms inside of me. But yeah, there's good things and there's bad things. There's good flora and bad flora, as it were. And it just has to be pH balanced now. So what's the current threat look like? For example, each year in the U.S., there's at least 2 million people that become infected with bacteria that are already resistant to current antibiotics.
Resistant. So mind you, that means that these people that are infected by this bacteria, there's no helping them. 2 million people, at least.
And out of those, at least 23,000 people die each year as a direct result of these infections and not being able to fight it. So it's good to know that at least, you know, the other over 1.5 million of those people make it out okay. The body's immune system is like, I get you, bacteria. But if this antibiotic resistance keeps growing, that might not be the case in the future. And in India, for example, over 58,000 babies died in just 1 year as a result of being infected with a strain of this resistant bacteria. So World Health Organization, or WHO, just funny to say, you know, this is a high priority for them. They have 5 strategic objectives. One is to improve the awareness and understanding of this resistance. The second is to strengthen their surveillance and the research. The third is, of course, to reduce the incidence of infection to begin with, because if you're not infected, great, you don't have bacteria that's resistant to anything. They also want to optimize the use of medicines, of antibiotics. Again, as we were talking before, some of the misuse and the overuse of antibiotics can also lead to this accelerated resistance. And they also want to ensure that there is a sustainable investment in countering this resistance, right? And that quite likely means financial investment as well, because of course, little that you can get done in this world without money. Now, you as a person and we as individuals can also help prevent and control some of the spread of the antibiotic resistance, which is good news. So only use antibiotics when they're prescribed by a certified health professional. Don't demand antibiotics if your health worker says you don't need them. And then always follow your health worker's advice when using those antibiotics. Don't share or use leftover antibiotics. Like, they're not Advil. Don't use them like that. And prevent infections yourself. You know, regularly wash your hands. prepare food hygienically, try to avoid close contact with sick people. If you're sick, stay home. Practice safe sex, everyone. And keep your vaccinations up to date. And to prepare food hygienically, actually, you can follow the WHO 5 Keys to Safer Food. Keep clean, separate raw and cooked, cook thoroughly, keep that food at safe temperatures, and use safe water and raw materials, and hopefully you have access to that as well. And choose foods that actually have been produced without the use of antibiotics for growth promotion or disease prevention in healthy animals. So there are some things that you can do, which is good to know.
Well, you know what was interesting too is that for a fair amount of years too, at least in the U.S., again, we can't speak for everyone, of course, but at least in the U.S., there were so many items coming out, whether it be hand soaps or lotions or what have you, that was all antibacterial. There was this huge, massive antibacterial craze. And it was like, oh, you should get, a little small antibacterial thing for your keys. So that way you can bring it along with you and give it to your kids and give it to yourself and, everything else. And all of a sudden, this big kind of uprise from medical professionals were like, no, this is getting to be too much. Because what you're doing, again, is helping the bad bacteria that's strong enough to build a resistance, and you're just going to actually get sicker. Plus, all these antibacterial products also kill the good bacteria that help you resist the bad bacteria. So not only are you making some of the strong bacteria more resistant, but you're also killing off the actual good bacteria, because it says it kills 99% of all bacteria. So that's also the good stuff too that helps you to survive. And so now you're starting to see basically a withdrawal from so many companies pulling a lot of their items, their antibacterial stuff, off the shelves, going, okay, maybe this isn't such a good idea. And so we're seeing less of a push for that and less items out there now. But for a while, it was a huge, huge thing. Everyone thought, oh, I need to get on this. I need to be antibacterialized. And it's like, but no, you need that for survival too.
Right. And see, I think someone asked about virus stuff. Most viruses are untreatable. And viral infections and bacterial infections are different. They're caused differently and they're treated differently. So we're talking about bacterial infections here specifically as well. Just to clarify that.
Yeah, it's not gonna save you from certain diseases or anything like that, or mutations by any means, but at least from bacterial infections.
Imagine living in a world where our soaps, detergents, cleaning products, and everything was antibacterial. Wouldn't that be a better world to live in? Germs are good for you because they help your body get trained for things.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? When you get sick, you build up a resistance to that sickness. That's why every single year, they give a different kind of flu shot. Now, mind you, strains come and go as well, which is another factor. So you have to be on top of what's the one with the most impact right now for that strain of, let's say, flu. But also too is because you build up a resistance to it. So when there's a new strain out, while that old strain is still out there, they got to go, well, most people have built up a resistance to this because either they got sick or they didn't because they already had a resistance. And so now we got to put in more of a resistance to this new strain. And that's all they're doing. Like with flu shots, they give you just a little bit of that strain of flu in you. That's why some people actually feel a little sick after they get a flu shot. That's exactly why. And for many of this, it's just them putting a little bit of that strain into you so your body can adjust and build that resistance. If you didn't have any of that, you'd be dead. Like if we time traveled and we still had all the bacteria that we have on us now, and we brought it back to the past, so many people would actually die or get wiped out because they're not resistant to a lot of the stuff we are. And so a lot of people would actually get severe bacterial infections that we wouldn't face now. And
somebody asked, are they doing research on can't find the exact quote right now, but they asked, are we actually doing research to combat this bacterial resistance? And the answer is yes. The NIAID, which I'm trying to figure out what it actually stands for here, actually has a whole site where they talk about the research on antimicrobial resistance and what they're doing to try to combat this. And we will be sharing that link in our Podbean and our YouTube as well for everybody to check up on all that research that they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. For everything that we talk about here on the show, we always link the resources down in the description sections or on our VODs on Twitch afterwards. So feel free to come on back or visit our YouTube or, again, whatever podcast aggregator you are on and listening to us with, and you'll be able to check out those resources and articles and much more. All right. So moving on now, we've talked about, again, kind of the evolution of resources going from, like, let's say gold now to lithium, and the lithium wars happening, how that's impacting business and the economy and governments and countries overall, to this kind of antibiotic resistance. What's happening now, how it's actually become a real issue. Again, we mentioned like the CDC, WHO, the World Health Organization is trying to come fight it as well. Many different organizations from many different countries are actually trying to come together because of how serious this is. We mentioned too that, again, 2 million people become infected, 23,000 of those people die each year. In India, actually 58,000 babies died in 1 year as a result of infection with resistant bacteria. And also antibiotic resistance causes 38,000 deaths in Thailand alone. So you're looking at deaths all over. So this is becoming more of a global issue. So not only are we concerned about like climate change or global warming and the impact on the world, but also bacteria that's becoming more and more resistant. So it's interesting how, we went from feeling safer and safer, like, okay, we're evolving, we're becoming better than the things that were killing us in some form or fashion. And yet now those things are also evolving and coming back to kick our ass. So we have those.
Science is on our side, except when
it's not.
When it's not.
Well, so now, not only do we have to worry about government versus government or, country versus country over resources or bacteria, but there's also this thing called dolphin attacks. And no, again, it's not Flipper jumping out of the water and smack you across the face with a fin. That's not what that is. What it is it's a way of attacking your digital assistants. So basically, what would happen? Or could the music you be listening to, or say conversations on TV, would they actually have the ability to hijack your digital assistant? And when we say digital assistant, we mean things like Siri, Alexa, Cortana, you name it. And could they hijack it with commands that are undetectable to the human ears? That question, or the answer to that question, is absolutely. These are actually known as dolphin attacks because dolphins can hear what humans can't. So that's where they're getting the name from.
Nice. And
actually, researchers have been aware of this for years, but because digital assistants are really starting to pick up speed now, that's where everyone else, the consumers especially, are starting to learn about this. So in general, commands can actually be hidden in high-frequency sounds that other assistant-enabled gadgets can detect, but we're not able to hear, so we never know what's actually happening. Researchers actually in 2016 proved this when they could use this technique to trigger basic commands like making phone calls on smart devices and launching websites on devices as well through these high-frequency transmissions. Actually, and just recently in a paper that was first reported by the New York Times, researchers proved it, in fact, by hiding audio inside of other recordings. And so it was basically nearly undetectable to the human ear when listened to. So in one example, what they did was they took a 4-second clip of music, which when fed to the speech recognition software, it came out as, "Okay, Google, browse to evil.com." They were able to actually hide the same audio also in a recording of the phrase, "Without the dataset, the article is useless." The researchers said that the recording with the hidden phrase was extremely difficult to discern and only seemed to have a slight distortion effect to the actual recording that the humans did hear. But it did have an impact on the device that they were trying to control. Now, these findings are also troubling, especially with the trend of connecting these, to the trend of these devices now coming up into the mainstream, where everyone's connecting a device to everything and having these assistants like a bunch of Alexas, for example, around and connected to your home appliances and smart gadgets and your bank account, your accounts to where you purchase things such as on Amazon. And so it makes it actually now very easy for people who are pranksters or who are malicious individuals to use the technique to get your information. They could, for example, unlock doors or even take money from your bank accounts and then transfer it over. Now, of course, tech companies are aware of this, and they have been aware of it for quite some time, which is why they've actually put in voice recognition. But again, with everything else, there's always a workaround. So for those with a will, they can get around voice recognition or other safeguards that have so far been put into these IoT or IoE systems. So for example, to give you an idea of this, earlier this week at Google's I/O Developer Conference, the company showed off a new tool called Duplex, which is able to make phone calls that sound just like an actual human. So again, you can have recordings and AI systems that sound like an actual human. You can put them behind another piece of audio, and then from there, you could actually then hack or get information through those. And I will say too that voice recognition hasn't been all that great. There are multiple videos out on YouTube right now of people who live stream and have had their own audience set off the donation voice alert, where someone can leave a message with a donation, and that voice alert will say, "Hey Alexa, what time is it? Hey Alexa, what's my address?" And those will actually set off those devices, those personal assistants. So we're already seeing that there is a flaw there. There is an issue there. Now, again, that's more kind of comical or whatever to a point, unless you're the streamer not wanting to release their address. But again, it could have actual real technological implications that negatively impact you, and it's important to be aware of.
Yeah, it's kind of like every time I hear something about digital assistants, I cringe just in general, because, you know, exactly, Denise, the technology just kind of sets us up to be lazy butts. But also, you know, you're giving so much power to something that is so interconnected to everything else that has to do with your life. And I mean, talking about digital assistants is, of course, another topic for another day. But it's not. It's just interesting that this is what. It's like we were talking about before, when you've got certain technology that's being developed and people don't necessarily realize how it can be used in a negative way, right? All we're really concerned with and all we're looking at is all of the benefits that this particular technology will give us. And it's important to also note that it might be used in a negative way. It might be used to manipulate someone. It might have backdoors or hacks that can be exploited, and we're so quick to adopt all this technology and just like run with it before we really understand what it can do to us. You know, like when Gmail first came out. And everyone jumped on the bandwagon because it was free email, y'all. And then it became this, oh, why do I have ads in my email program? And why does it know exactly the conversations that I've had with people? Oh, because it's a free piece of software or, it's a free online thing that has access to everything that I am typing, that I am sending, my correspondence, what I'm viewing, all of that good stuff. So, and now it's like, it's too late, right? Like you can turn privacy settings on and off, and you can do this and that. But the point is, you're using that piece of technology. They already got you, right? And hearing about these Dolphin attacks, I'm not surprised. Like, of course, this is what people want to do, is like hijack your digital assistants, whether they do it again because of, oh, I just want to play a prank on someone, or I just want to see if I can do it, or if they're actually being malicious, have malicious intent behind it. But of course they can, and it's important to realize again that anytime you get a piece of technology and you start using it, whether you are an early adopter, whether you are somebody who is using it later on, it's important to realize that, somebody out there is going to say, how can I exploit this?
Oh, yeah.
Whether or not, again, it's with malicious intent or has any real end result or end goal. It's just, kind of saying, well, I did that. I figured out a way to do it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and this is the thing, too. We're not saying, because people are obviously going to jump to conclusions and go, well, you're anti-tech. Well, you don't want things to be easier. I mean, this is evolution.
No, yeah.
And it's like, no, that's not the case. What you're doing is you're looking at a very small picture based on your wants and needs, and not looking at the bigger picture, which is the fact that we are building a lot of things that don't have actual true regulations to it yet, and there are a lot of flaws and backdoors to it. And you don't have to believe us, that's fine, but I'm going to believe actually someone in our community who is a professional hacker who hacks things for a living for businesses to let them know of their issues, who says that this is actually a very big and serious issue. And a lot of this data being put out there, and the amount of open doors that are available for hackers to come in and steal your information, to steal your data, it's out there, and it is a very big issue. So I'm going to trust the hackers out there who are the good hackers, if you will, the white hat hackers, who are telling us, no, this is a serious issue over anything else. And again, that is the problem, is the fact that it's not that we're anti-tech. The problem is that there are many things being put out there, there are many things being put out there without any kind of reinforcement or protection to the people that use those items. So it's great, let's have my phone connect to my TV, and let's have my phone be able to access my bank account, or whatever else, like certain elements. But there's got to be security. I mean, there is a reason why, for example, we have pins on our debit cards, why we have to sign off when we pay for something on our credit cards. I mean, there are many reasons for these little elements. So, saying that we want backdoors for or we want to put securities on these new technologies is nothing new. And if you don't agree, then, think about, for instance, why you put pins on your debit card. Why are you signing off on your credit card? All right, take away all those then. If you don't want security and a little bit of privacy for your information, and make sure no one runs off with your bank account number or anything else, then why do you use those securities? Why do you make sure that those securities are in place? Again, it works for it all. You can't say, well, I want security only in these specific aspects, but in everything else, I don't want security. It's either you want security or you don't. And that's the core of it. And again, we're not saying that, we're not saying we're anti-tech, or that we don't want a lot of these benefits that this technology gives. Bring it on. Just make sure it's secure before you release it, before you put it out there. So like, these personal digital assistants can be absolutely fantastic. They can make things a lot simpler. Even for people, for instance, let's say who are older individuals who can't get around as easily. Now they can vocally make an order and get groceries sent to them. Like, there's great benefits to this technology. Don't get us wrong. It's just making sure it's secure enough before you release it to the public, so that way that information doesn't go out. Because not everyone is going to be constantly checking their banking statement going, oh, did my credit card number get leaked out? Did someone get control of my device and they made payments or bought things online without me realizing it or knowing it? Not everyone's going to do that. Most companies know this, and a lot of companies will try to screw you over and put additional costs and charges into your total without you ever realizing it. So it's just about security, and these Dolphin attacks can be serious. Otherwise, organizations like Mashable.com wouldn't be writing about them. And it is very true. It can be a very serious situation, at least for private data. And it depends on your level of privacy. You know, if you don't care that your address is out there and available, your name's available, your email's available, that all these things are available, by all means, that's fine for you. But for other people who do care, it's important for them to know that this does exist and that this can happen to them. I think that's really the core thing. And again, we can agree to disagree, or we can all agree. It doesn't matter. Again, the whole thing is the conversation. And the important thing is to look at both sides. You know, in a discussion, you don't want to say, well, my side is right, I disagree with you. It's saying, well, I disagree with you, but I can understand your points, or I'm seeing where you're coming from. We could still disagree, but I understand that. So for some folks, this is a very serious issue, and we should respect that, just as they should respect if you don't care that your information's out there. Doesn't matter. Let it fly then. Let that information out there. Don't worry about security. But some people do care. And again, we've seen major hacking attacks where, let's say, for instance, our social security numbers have gotten out there. Our passport information has gotten out there. All of this has happened. There's been major leaks. And guess what? Our government hasn't done anything. You know, a lot of people say, well, the government will take in and handle it all. But they haven't. And the reason why is because they're big businesses. And these big businesses that screw up, they get a slap on the hand and go, well, don't do that again. Because again, they bring in a lot of money to the economy. They bring in a lot of money to fund a lot of these people's campaigns. So again, they just get slapped on the hand. If it was one of us doing it, we'd be arrested. And I'm not saying that it's anti-government, but that's just kind of how things are flowing and working right now. I was going to say, what was the most recent? There was a big...
The most recent.
I would say there was the company, actually, what was it, Equifax? Yeah, Equifax, who had that massive leak of information. And they found out it's actually much bigger. There's been a bunch of reports from the New York Times, Mashable.com, Gizmodo, and many more who have been talking about the fact that this information that was supposedly leaked got even bigger. And now your passport information, thanks to Equifax, is out there. Your social security numbers, everything, like so much of your data is out there and can be sold to the highest bidder. And we don't know for what use. And that's the scary thing for a lot of people, right? You don't want that coming back to bite you in the ass in some form or fashion. Yeah,
it's like when I, had pictures up on Facebook back when Facebook was fresh and new. And some people just found that frightening. They're like, I don't want to put my picture up there. Oh my God, they're going to find it and people are going to find me. And I'm like, who's going to find you? You're like a nobody. Who do you care? Right? But then, Facebook used those images for ads and like whatever other clusterfuck happened with Facebook there. And then, those same people are like, see what happens? And I'm like, man, whatever. But, the other problem is, slowly, if you do give up your freedoms in whatever sense that means to you over time, you'll find yourself that you're shackled to a lot of the stuff. And it's harder to stop, a deluge, a waterfall, something like that, if you aren't aware of what's happening slowly until you get there, and be able to stop it if you want to earlier on. So like Evan said, it's definitely important to be aware of stuff like this, especially since, digital information, information is power, especially in our world, especially in the Western world, especially in the US. And if you give up a lot of that information to someone else, they have power over you. Whether they have it right now and they can do something with it, whether they have it later. So privacy, security, all of that stuff, it's good to be aware of it. If you care about it, if you don't care about it, it's good to know, because there might be a time where it might be too late to undo something, and then at that point you can't be like, oh, I never saw it coming. It's like, you saw it coming. You signed up and you're in the front line.
Yeah, and again, we love apps. We use them ourselves. We love tech. We use it ourselves. We have multiple computers. We got, phones and everything, smartphones and everything else. And, we're on a streaming platform, so we're all about tech and the benefits of it. But again, don't put the carriage before the horse. I think it's so easy for people to be like, oh, look all the good things it does. Yeah, and that's great. Keep it up. Let's keep going with it. Let's see what we can do. But again, have the goddamn security in place. Don't just have it open and be like, well, I don't care because it doesn't impact me yet until it does. Like, again, be careful with that stuff. I know in chat someone mentions too about like credit cards. Well, people were so worried about it, 20 years ago, which seems a bit, but okay, 20, sure, we'll go back 20 years. But let's say 7 years ago, people worried about getting scammed, or 10 years ago, people were worried about getting scammed online. The point is, though, is that people were scammed. It wasn't the fact that people were just magically afraid. People were scammed. And so what happened? They fixed those back doors. They put on more security so you can feel safe when you order something through your Starbucks app or your Chipotle app or your whatever app. And that's the point we're trying to get at. It's not the fact to stop the technology. So again, people have got to stop putting this whole, I use it's just fine thing. No. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the backdoor stuff, the stuff you do not see and interact with directly, but the security aspects of it. Again, have the credit cards online, have, all these elements available online. Just make sure the security is there. That is all we're saying. So again, a lot of companies tend to push things too quickly without making sure that people are protected, because it can impact them. People can run away with their personal data, and people go, what about my data? Like, I don't care if people know I'm going to vacation. Yeah, they don't either. They're taking your credit card number and making purchases, which has happened. It's not like we're just making this up. They take this information and they can do things with it. People have been signed up for credit cards that they never actually signed up for. And this person's running around using their credit card to buy things.
Yeah, I actually heard a story. Speaking of Starbucks, this is a fun story. Not for the person that it happened to, but it's a fun story to hear. So I was in line, and the two baristas talking to each other. How somebody, I guess, had seen someone else type in their password and information into the Starbucks app, and so they used that on their phone, and they just went to all these Starbucks and bought a shit ton of stuff. And kept reloading the card or something. It was this insane thing, and I just thought that was just interesting, because it's right, I love my Starbucks app. It's fantastic, except when I forget my phone, I can't find my phone, or I don't have internet access to reload my card. Although I guess if you're at Starbucks, you can give them your first and last name, email address, and zip code, and you can log into their Wi-Fi, y'all. Wherever you're at. But yeah, it was just interesting to hear that, that, right, people could still do that. And again, yeah, it's just a matter of personal preference for that, for sure. But I think it is important, for everybody to just slow down and make sure that what you're doing, you're aware of what you're doing and the impact of what you're doing.
Yeah, because what we're talking about is just the general rights of people. If there's a potential flaw in a piece of technology, even if it has a small chance of happening, you should have the rights to be aware of it. That's all.
Right.
If there's even if it's a minute potential that your information gets leaked out, just as long as so that way if it does happen, at least you were aware of it, rather than stuff like this Equifax information happening, or the Cambridge Analytica stuff that occurred with Facebook, where all of a sudden it's this big, drama, this big surprise to everyone. And people who are in the tech industry can say, well, yeah, we've been seeing this happen for years now. But not everyone is a tech guru. Some people just use a lot of tech and take it for granted. And that happens, You could say, well, tough luck to them. They should have done the research. But again, we're only able to take in so much information over time anyway. We're able to only be able to process so many things in our lives. So, some people focus that in on technology. Other people focus it in on sports stats. Other people focus it on many other aspects of life. There's a lot going on in this world, which is, again, why we have this talk show, to talk about those different aspects, to hit on all the different variables that are happening right now. And, not just say that this is a specific direction things need to go, but these are potentials of where they might need to go. But that there are a lot of gray areas, and we won't know until time goes on what will happen.
Right. Just like with the, antibacterial, the bacterial resistance, it's, in one way, I feel like Mother Nature is saying, hey, listen up. You've escaped my grasp for too long. You get infected and you learn about it. You use your own body, or it's Mother Nature's way of doing things. And one might say, take a look at that and say, yeah, we've cheated death and injury and whatnots for all this time. because of science. And now Mother Nature is having her do. There's actually a show on Amazon, whose name I've forgotten again, but they talk up there. It's set up in the cold fringes of the North Pole, and they discover a strain of they thaw out this creature, and it basically infects people in ways they had never imagined, which is something I think that Mongo, you said earlier in chat, like if you go back long in time, you're going to find things that are harmful to us because we're not resistant to them, right? And so, yeah, we'll see what the future holds for that. And for the lithium stuff, who knows what new technology is going to pop up tomorrow that's going to overtake lithium-ion batteries and, will become smarter, stronger, and faster. And our televisions will be 15,000K and all of that good stuff. And our eyes will explode out of our heads. But it's okay because Google Glass will give you new eyes. And we're all cyborgs already, everyone. So no worries there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be anti-tech for the most part because we're in a very technological world. And this is where it's evolving to. And we all use technology every day, even if it's as simple as a hammer. Hammer is technology. A hammer is technology. A screwdriver is technology.
True.
The things that built your house, your home, your apartment, whatever it may be, your shack out in the woods, whatever it is, you use tools of some sort. Back in the day when they used deer hide, for example, to help strap roofing together, that was a tool, right? So anything that you're adapting to and changing to make it work for your survivability, those are all tools. So, contacts, tools, glasses, tools. So again, it's not about being anti-tech or anti-tool or, being completely afraid of technology, but it's just better understanding it and where it's going, better understanding sciences and the environment around you and where it's going. We don't want, I know today was a little bit more fearful, if you will, like fear factor, like, oh, this could happen, this could happen.
Fear factor.
But again, every positive has negative, every negative has a positive. So we have to look at both sides. Like we talked about and spoke on more about how lithium has a great positive to it, but that, it could also cause conflicts. And that's just because that's history. That is how things have been going in the world for hundreds of years. The resistance to antibiotics is a very real thing and a very big concern that a lot of people don't think much about, or they keep using, that antibacterial hand soap. Not saying that's going to kill you by any means, no, but that just doesn't help the situation and how big of a situation it actually is. Then, of course, thirdly, we talk about like these Dolphin attacks, attacking your digital assistants. So not like it's a big deal per se, because even though digital assistants are becoming more and more popular, it's not like everyone is using them yet. And it's not like you don't have the option to turn them off on certain devices like your desktop or your phone. Absolutely. You don't want to use them. A lot of times you can turn them off, or you don't have to purchase them.
Yeah, or you can set wake words so that they don't turn on until that particular word is spoken, stuff like that.
Yeah, and so again, it's not meant to like invoke fear or say we're anti this or that. Again, we're trying to hit on both sides of the coin with these conversations, because that is what's really important, is having a conversation. And again, I go back to that conversation sense of listening to both sides, and not just saying you're wrong because this is my point of view and everything else, but like going, well, I disagree, but I can hear what you're saying, or I get what you're saying because of X, Y, and Z. That can make sense, but what about this? And it's all about just starting up that conversation, get people thinking on it. I don't want to have it be where it's a major kind of brawling debate, because that's, I feel like, what a lot of people assume discussions should be, or like the political debates that we see that have now been turned almost into boxing matches. That hype in the last primary, basically, where we were like, it was like ESPN whenever you watched a political debate, and they had to try to like jab and punch and try to do all these things verbally at their opponent. And it's like, that's not what it's all about. It's really about like, okay, well, what are the factors, what are the points of view, what's actually happening here, why do you disagree, and how so? And let's really have a in-depth conversation. And people are going to either choose what, and either way, people are going to choose what they agree with. And that's just what's going to happen. So we love having these discussions with you all, and especially about today's topics where, again, sometimes they're awesome and exciting, and sometimes they can have a little bit of a dark side to them.
Ooh, the dark side.
The dark side. But it is always important to understand those and understand what's out there and have the ability and the rights to at least have knowledge on what we use every day. Because it is so easy to overlook stuff like that. Like, I've thought about personal assistants. I've got one on my phone because it came with the phone. I have one on my computer because it came with the computer. I never really thought much about them per se, except for that, that company collects your data. What are you purchasing? How old are you? What are your likes and dislikes? So that way they can then sell that data to marketing research. That it is what it is, right? I've been in marketing and business for years. I get how it works. I've been one of those people collecting that data. That's how I can talk about it. But at the same time, though, knowing that someone can somehow control my device and tell it, hey, access my bank information, and then they can get that on their end, that is concerning. And that makes me go, let's hold off until we get more security involved here, so that way we don't have to worry about this. Because I'm fine with using it, but let's make sure we got the security behind it.
Right. And it's nice to know that at least, if you forget your password, you can reset it, right? Like, there's ways too that even if something horrible happens to you, and hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, there are also ways that you can get that part of your life back or get that stuff out. You can call your credit card and say, hey, these charges aren't mine, or you can call your bank and, get yourself on your debit card and so on and so forth. So at least that's good. You can tell your boss, no, I didn't go to that porn site. That was totally someone, Dolphin, attacking me through my Alexa.
See, so it makes a great excuse too.
Yeah.
That we don't have to be like, oh, my dog got onto my computer and brought up, porn. The damn frisky dog. I thought he was in heat or she was in heat. So now there we go. No, so now you can just blame it on Dolphin attacks. There you go. You're welcome. Take that to work with you. Enjoy. And welcome Fused Fury to chat. How's it going, bud? Good to see you, of course, as always. And thank you very much. It's been an awesome conversation going on between Crazy Doc, RX Mongo, Denise Agrees, Smitty, so many others. Thank you guys for chatting it up with us. Again, we try to point out as many things as possible that we see in chat as best we can, depending on where the conversation goes. So we greatly appreciate y'all either way, whether we get directly to some of the things that you say or not, but we do appreciate it. And I think it's awesome, again, that people in general, outside of just directly talking with us, talk with each other about these and get different points of views, because we come from a very much Western culture perspective, specifically from the US. Again, Tatiana's originally from Romania, but a lot of her life has been spent in the US. Mine has always been spent in the US with some travel here and there as best as I could. But there's still certain perspectives out there that we don't get to capture, and so we love to bring that into the chat. So of course, if you're listening to us on a podcast, feel free to join us as well live every Saturday at 1 p.m. PDT for Serious Talk Saturdays, which is twitch.tv/MindMineTV, where you can join us live, really get in the discussion, share your thoughts, and get a conversation going, and hopefully learn something new. If anything, you can take something to the next kegger or party you go to and go, hey, by the way, did you know? And people will swoon all over and be like, oh my god, that's amazing, mind blown.
That's right. And don't take us, you can go do your own research as well, use the Google, use your assistants.
Oh yeah, by all means.
Feel free to be just as informed and educated as you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about how news can bring negative impacts actually to you psychologically speaking. And that, again, it is important to do your own research. Don't take everything we say as the testament, or it's written in stone and you can never do anything else about it. This is the end all be all. Because we get our information from a lot of different resources as well, and they're bringing in their own biases at times, and they're bringing in other aspects of what they see based on culture and many other perspectives. So, we try our best to weed out the information as best as we can, but it's never perfect, right? So do your own research, come up with your own conclusions. But either way, for us, that's even important, is that the fact that you're out there researching, looking up those conclusions and learning something new, and building up your own opinion with actual facts rather than just instinctually going with the first thing you hear. There's so many times we hear on Twitter where something spread like wildfire, and no one actually looked into it to realize it was completely fake or the article was clickbait or something like that.
That's hard.
It's tough, you know, and again, it's not that we don't care, you know, in the sense of when we do share out information like that, we see something catchy and we just go, oh, you know, I care about stuff like that based on that title. And, you know, these people that I'm connected with, I think they'd really like it. So I want to share it out, right? And that's good. But it's just making sure that information is actually on point and has some sort of footing as well to it.
Indeed. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Again, great conversation as per the usual. And we will be back tomorrow on twitch.tv/MindMineTV at 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time with Rise of the Tomb Raider. Come check us out if you're listening to us anywhere else. And we'll have some fun playing some games. Until then, have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you soon.